Hi, welcome back to the League-Kempner House. Today marks the 2-year anniversary of when I first purchased this house. And I did a 1-year anniversary look where I compared the original tour of the house inside with a walkthrough at the 1 year and pointed out some of the changes. And as we were preparing for this, my sister Jo went through and looked at the YouTube videos for the past year, and it seems like everything we've done in the last 12 months has been in the basement or on the outside of the building. So I'm going to start out here and take you around the outside and point out some of the things we've done, why we did them, show you a few before pictures, and kind of get you up to speed on where we are starting out the new year. So come on in and let's start with the front porch. You can see behind me that these arches are missing their plaster, and that's because they were cracked and falling and in really bad shape. And this was one of the things that worried me the most. I wasn't really sure that we could fix this. I had faith in my masons. They're great, but this is kind of a complicated thing to do, and it gets even more complicated as we move around and look at the curved porch. But they did a great job. They braced everything inside, demolished this, and made a form and rebuilt these arches. And I think it's interesting because one of the problems we had after we got the first one down was matching the pattern on the brick, because the brick pattern actually lets you come back with the plaster to make the shapes. So it's not just flat brick. We had to have these indentations where they will come back and plaster at some future date. Now, we're not plastering now because that is a skill that not many people have. We need to color match, we need to texture match, and I don't want to bring somebody in to do that until we're finished with the house and we can come in and do everything all at once so that it will match. But to me, the brick is pretty the way it is, and from the street, it's not that noticeable, I think. And since we're planning on opening for tours as a work in progress so that you can see what's going on, this will be good for people to look at and kind of see how the house is actually constructed. Because you know me, I'm a bit of a construction nerd, and that's one of the favorite parts for me, is just how well made this house is. Even though it's a little bit falling down when I got it, the bones are really great, and it was well made at the time. So come on in, let's take a look inside the porch. You can see all this temporary bracing we put in. That was in one of the videos, because the floor of the porch is now one of the bigger issues, and we quite haven't gotten there on solving the engineering problem of, can we save this, or do we have to tear down the floor and put a new floor in? So right now, for safety reasons, we have it braced. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, but long term, we need a solution and we need to get this fixed. So that's something we'll be looking hard at, maybe not in 2023, but in 2024, because it's not critical right now. And you can see we also did work on all the windows. You remember all the lintel replacement we started doing the first year, carrying over into the second year. And out here, because this arch is facing the street, these don't have the steel lintels. We had to recreate the arch in the brick, so when these are plastered over, it'll look the same and our arched windows will fit back in. So I'm super pleased with this area. The guys did a great job, and it actually went much faster than I thought. And faster means cheaper, because they work by the hour. So this whole process on the front took them less than 3 weeks, I would say, which is just phenomenal. Inside the alcove of the parlor, and there's been many videos, there will be many, many more. It's a tiny, tiny area. It has caused so many problems. And remember from the earlier videos, it was altered. This second floor, I call it the second floor, ground first, second, or basement first, second, however you want to call it. But that closed-in porch up there was originally a Juliet porch, an open porch with a different roof line. It was closed in 1920. It's caused nothing but problems since then with leaks in the guttering system. This was very, very deteriorated and had to be rebuilt, as you can see, from the ground up. And we still have a long way to go on that. Towards the end of the year, we had an issue with a big windstorm that blew the roof off this area. I've got it tarped. I'm still working on that. So we have water issues. It's still a mess, but in 2023, our goal is to finish this work and get the windows in. You went with us to the wood shop where you saw all the window frame wood being bent and roughed in to build the windows back in this. And so we're hoping to get the water issue fixed and those windows in and get this house sealed up. So this will be a 3-year project because it started almost day one. And here we are at the end of year 2, and we're not even halfway there on it. This is all the old roofing that came off of that. I just haven't drug it to the trash pile yet. But this area is just a junk area, and we keep filling it up with trash. But we did, I think it was in the first year, we worked on the fence and did some work over here. Looks like the windstorm took out my picnic table and chairs. I'll have to straighten that back up. But not a lot has gone on over here. I don't know what that is. Our other really big, expensive project that we did not plan on doing in 2022 was the rebuild of this porch. We had a situation where a vine called a cat's claw grew up on this, and I don't know if I've ever fully explained it, but it's a very invasive vine that has a 3-pronged, sharp, tiny set of hooks on it that can cling to anything. They will rip into your skin. They're very delicate and thin, but they are super sharp. And once they attach, then they put out a root at that same node, and it will go in the tiny little pores of the brick. And once it's in, it starts growing, and it feeds on the moisture that's retained in the brick. And it just grows to the size of a medium to large sweet potato. And then as it does that, it shatters the brick, it shatters the mortar. This whole thing was unsafe. It didn't look too bad until we got the vine off and noticed that these walls were moving. So if someone leaned on it, I was fearful that it could just fall off and cause an injury. So it became a safety issue. So we had to stop everything and fix this. And again, you see, they've done a great job matching the brick, because we'll have to come over and plaster this. So you can see what the plaster looked like and then how they had to make those same shapes with the brick. So this was kind of an exercise in, I don't know what you call it, but a puzzle to put the bricks together and get everything to match and be where we can plaster it. Vines are horrible. When I worked on the Lucas apartment, well, when I bought it, actually, it was covered with this beautiful, beautiful trumpet vine. It was gorgeous, and it looked like something that should be on a postcard. And the mason took one look at it and said, get it off and don't plant anything near it, because what happened is that trumpet vine puts a root through the brick, and it doesn't grow a tuber like the cat's claw, but the roots can get 2 to 3 inches in diameter, and they do the same thing. They shatter the brick, and it almost took down the carriage houses. Now, I've seen historical pictures of this house where the whole thing is covered in a vine, and it didn't seem to do any damage. But that was a different type of vine that obviously didn't put out those root systems that penetrate the brick. So we won't ever have vine on this house again. It's caused, I don't know, $30, $40, $50,000 worth of damage just on this porch and the front porch. So not something we want to repeat. We just barely got this one in under the wire. Where I'm standing was that huge big pile of brick rubble that came from the front porch, it came from this porch, it came from in the basement, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We had hauled it off by hand in pickup trucks one time. You probably saw that video of my hair looking great on the bay where we dumped it, but this was too much. It would have taken weeks to get it out of here by hand. So I hired the big excavator to come and clear this out because I think we're almost through with the major demolition. And while he was doing that, he cleaned up the side of the garage where our plans are for this year to put some outdoor restrooms. And he did some more grading for drainage because we do have our retention pond, but there's still some slope issues on this side, and we're trying to get all that water away from the house and get it to run out to the street. So one of our goals for 2023 is to get all this cleaned up and get some bathrooms put back here. One thing we want to do is start having events and do some fundraising. We have to pay for all this work we're doing, and this is a great outdoor space to hold those kind of events, but we need nice restrooms for people, and it will be a while before we get them in the house. And our goal is to get an ADA compliant restroom back here and sidewalk put in, clean all this out, put up some lights, and be able to host some happy hours and some fun themed events in this yard. It's a great yard to have those kinds of things. So that's on our critical path list for 2023. Technically, this got started before the end of the year, but it is exciting. They're getting the sidewalks finished up, and that is a big accomplishment for 2022 to get through that process with the city and get approved and get the design. And then here we are at the new year with our new sidewalk. So we're very excited. No video about 2022 would be complete without me talking about the plumbing situation. This was probably the highlight of the year for me. I know people think it's funny to be so excited about a sewer line, but this was a huge ordeal. And getting this line put in and getting it brought up to the house and connected to the city sewer is really important. And I want to thank again the structural engineer who did the engineering work for free so that we could get the permit to be able to drill through the foundation and take the sewer line into the house. Without him, I don't know what we'd be doing. So I love this guy. He's my favorite thing right here. And then another big thing we did was, once it was in, we did get that permit and were able to drill in and get all of the plumbing laid in the floor of the basement. So that for this year, we're ready to pour a foundation and start building back and putting the house back together. You can also see here above the windows, more lintel work went on the outside. Year before, we did a lot of work inside on lintels, but each window has 3 lintels. It has one inside, one in the middle, and one on the outside. So we took care of the inside one and sometimes the middle one from the inside. Then we shifted the work outside and started replacing that 3rd lintel. So I don't know how many windows we've done. I think I'm going to count them, but it's been a lot. That's been a big, big part of the work this year. Another really big project that we finished up at the beginning of the year was some of the beam and floor joist work down here in the basement. There was so much to do, and a really significant area was behind me, this servant stair area, and it was just completely eaten with termites. It was one of the worst places in the house, and it holds a tremendous amount of weight because that staircase that these beams support go all the way up to the 3rd floor. So that's a lot of weight in one spot. So we've just started. We've only done from the ceiling of the basement down. This year we'll have to start tearing out the staircase going up and looking for more termite damage and building that up from the ground up and making that secure. The good news is when I walk on it, I jump on it, and I don't feel a lot of movement or any give. So I don't know how high up these guys went, but I'm hoping they stop after the 1st floor and we don't have to go much higher than that. But the safe thing to do is to take down all that big board cladding and just look at it. There's no other way to really know what's going on. We also, well, while we're down here, we can talk about the plumbing. This is where that big sewer line came in, and you can see we've laid out the floor plan of the basement. We've got, and I'm going to stop calling it the basement. It confuses people because everybody thinks of a basement being below ground. This is really...
And it is not.
It's,
look out the window.
There's the ground. We're about a foot... Yeah, we're about a foot below ground. So this is really a ground floor level, but down here we call them basements. So I'm going to try to make that a New Year's resolution to call this ground floor. But anyway, we're ready to kind of deal with the water issues. We have a little bit more joist work to do, and then we can pour foundation down here, and that will be really exciting and a big step for us. Here we are in the attic space going behind this third floor bathroom that was added in 1920. The room was already here, but the bathroom was put in the room. And remember, this is the space that they cut all those floor joists and just butchered the structural part of the house to make room for the plumbing. So that was a big project and took a considerable amount of time. We're not finished. There's some cleanup in there to do. There's another brace that has to go in, and we haven't put the bolts in, but it's stable right now, and we'll come back and finish that up at a later point. Maybe we ought to do it now while it's cool, because it was a bear to be in there in the summer. I don't want to do that again, but right now it's stable, so maybe next year. That brings us up here to that window where I access the small flat roof over the parlor in the west bedroom alcove that's been such a problem. That work to get the roof deck done needs to be finished before the roofer can come do his thing, and that's going to start off kind of the work we do in the third year. You'll see me back in my harness working on that soon. Unfortunately, roofing will be a big part of our focus for this year and a big part of our budget, but it's very important to get this house dry. I know you're sick of me talking about water, and I am too, and I hope that this is the year we put all that behind us. Another big project will be getting started on running the electrical to the house. That's a big deal. It's a real turning point. And I think I mentioned before in the temporary electric service video that there's a young electrician on the island who has volunteered his time to wire this house for free. We just need to buy the material. And his wife has offered to roll up her sleeves and pitch in and help us with some volunteer efforts too. And that's going to be a big turning point for the house. I've been working on a plan where he can get started before we actually finish out the basement, which had been a holdup on the critical path. But he and I have talked, and we've come up with some workarounds so he can get started rather immediately. So we should be able to start showing you some of that work very soon. So that's a good segue to some of the big non-construction things that happened last year. While I'm wrapping up, let's look at a flashback of some of last year's activities. The really big non-construction thing that happened was setting this house up as a nonprofit and getting the deed in the nonprofit name so it can be restored and preserved for generations to come. That transfer has dramatically changed the outlook for preserving this house. We can now accept donations, have fundraising events, and we're already having professionals like the electrician donate time and skills, which really helps the budget. You'll meet many of these people in the upcoming videos. Something that I'm particularly excited about is that we can finally have volunteers on site to help with all the restoration efforts. If that's something you're interested in, and thanks to my sister Jo, we have a website, League-Kempner that you can go to and sign up. This is no longer my house. It's your house too. So a very special thanks to those of you who have been donating through the website already. We're working on a way to memorialize your support as a permanent part of the house. Whether it's been $5 or $500, it all makes a difference, and we appreciate every penny. 100% of it goes back into this house. Thank you so much for your support and incredibly kind comments and taking this journey with us. Remember to check out all the other social media sites. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok. There are links in the description. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications here on YouTube, because next year is going to be a busy and transformational year here at the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas. We can't wait to share it with you.